Yeah, something that it can be, this is just obviously my personal opinion here, is there's spinal cord injury is so traumatic and life-changing, not just because it changes your life, but because it permanently alters and changes your body too, that a lot of people get really focused on getting their walk back, and they will stop focusing on getting their life back. They'll spend, thousands of dollars and thousands of hours over 2 to 3 years, going to all these different places to get all these different treatments, to have all these different surgeries. And to me, like that, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, push your body as far as you can go, take your limit, especially as far as your budget can go, because a lot of this costs a lot of money. But I think it's a matter of like, there has to be a balance. You have to learn how to live your life as a wheelchair user. You got to learn how to drive again. You got to learn how to live on your own. You got to learn how to cook. You got to learn how to get a job. Like, there's lots of things you need to learn how to do. Get a girlfriend, get a boyfriend. Like, there's so much stuff that most people tend to forget. And then what happens is, an unfortunate reality, year 2, year 3, they kind of come to terms with it. They kind of have a conversation with, they're like, oh, this isn't going anywhere. And two things can happen. One, they say, all right, that was a lost cause, let me move on to the next thing. Or what I see most people happen is they get really disappointed, really upset, and kind of crash and fall into a really bad depression because they had such high expectations. And I think they're also unaware that, like, you can live an extremely high quality of life without the use of your legs. But I understand the psychology behind it, because, when I got hurt, the thing that didn't work was my legs. So I thought, oh, if my legs work, then my life will return. But that's just not true. Like, I know people that are walking paras that their life still isn't back to normal. They still get, skin sores. They still have bladder and bowel issues. They still, have injuries. They still have to occasionally, like, jump back in their regular wheelchair again. Like, they're on medication. They got spasms. They got pain. Like, there's a whole host of things that's like, yeah, you can get your walk back, but, like, you should probably focus on your life. And that can be kind of a controversial topic, especially around new people. But I think it's something that's pretty important.
Well, it's like when I peer mentor, that's the first thing I tell people. I say, hey, it's cool if you want to focus on walking again. That's all fine and dandy, but don't let that be all your life is about. Because in reality, it's going to take time. If you do walk, it's not going to happen overnight. And that's what people don't realize. They think that if I put all this work in for the next 6 months, I'll be out of this chair in no time. When it took 2 years for me to even get anything back. And so I'm starting to come to this realization that it just takes time. And the more that I've focused on being happy and healthy, the fuller my wheel life has been. And the more sensation and movement I've gotten back, the more return I've had, because I haven't made that my only focus. I'm not looking at all of the things I'm not getting. But that's any obstacle in life. I realized shortly after my injury that being a paraplegic felt just as bad as having to file bankruptcy the year before or being broke. Obviously, they're two different extremes, and being a paraplegic ended up being the worst of the two. But we go through so many things in life that feel equally as disabling as our disability. And it's so important that we constantly check ourselves and be mindful about what we're thinking. So, you would I've accept that I'm a paraplegic, but I still find times where I feel overwhelmed in my current situations or by my obstacles. And I have enough mindfulness practice now that I can just reroute my thoughts and say, hey, this isn't an obstacle. This is my opportunity. There's going to be something that I'm going to learn from this. And it's all about changing your perspective and approach to what comes at you in life.
I got a question for you. I fully believe that we are what we think about, right? Like, I think the most that we put into our mind is what it is. Like, our reality is what we think about. But I deal with depression and mental health, and a lot of the times I can't help what I think about. A lot of the times I kind of sink in to these, like, just bad places in my mind. People that deal with depression, you know what I'm talking about. And inside of those places, I think for me, the opposite is true. I think I have to allow myself to think about those things, and I have to acknowledge them and feel them and have a conversation with them as opposed to avoiding them. I think a lot of people get that mixed up when they're like, oh, you are what you think about, so be careful what you think about. And people are like, okay, I'm just not going to think about being sad anymore. And it's like, that's not what we mean.
Yeah,
That's not what we mean.
You definitely, you have to be mindful over these thoughts. You're going to have them. Even, quarantine, we're stuck with ourselves.
Facts.
And
Totally.
me still being a newly injured person, because it's only been 5 years, I am constantly thinking about the fact that, holy crap, I'm actually paralyzed. I'm a paraplegic. How did I get here? And I've been finding myself going back, and I'm addressing these feelings because I'm comparing quarantine to when I was first injured. And I'm like, wow, I had to adjust to a new normal. And that's kind of how I've been adjusting to the quarantine. So I'm having these negative thoughts about my disability because I'm allowing myself to go back to those emotions. But the key is not staying there. You're allowed to have bad thoughts. Absolutely. We're human beings. We're going to think negative things. We're going to be like, crap, why'd this happen? But the key is addressing that and saying, hey, it's okay that I feel this way, but I can't allow this to control my life and stay here. And I have to move forward from it. So you address it and move forward. Don't ignore it completely. Obviously, that's toxic to your health. But moving on from it is key. You can't dwell in what you can't change.
Yeah, Andrew, have you found yourself having to kind of like, I use the word darkness instead of demons because I'm not really a religious person, but like, have you found yourself trying to like have you been in a point where you're like, oh, that's something in my head that I've been avoiding by working all the time, or I've been avoiding by doing insert the blank? Like, have you found yourself like contemplating stuff?
Yeah, for sure. I think I tend to have a pretty good like relationship with those types of things typically, because I have, through a lot of like self-development and things like that, I've learned from a lot of really smart people those types of concepts where like you can only like get mad at and get frustrated at the things that you can actually change. Anything that you can't change, like you just have to like accept it. You know what I mean? And I think, during this time, like I've had a lot more free time. And I think, honestly, sometimes I am working so much, and like you said, kind of maybe working so much to hide the things I don't want to think about. I almost sometimes don't give myself the privilege to just like fuck off and like have fun sometimes. Like, I think that's one thing that this has actually taught me is like, I don't have to be 100% productive like all the time. You know what I mean? And I think that's one thing that I was being toxic to myself about the past few years is like, I wouldn't let myself do anything like that wasn't in some certain way like halfway productive, or like I couldn't just like go lay in bed. I had to be like listening to like a audiobook, or I couldn't just like play a game. I needed to be doing something at the same time or whatever. And I think that's one thing that this time, kind of just a lot of time at home. And also I think another thing that distracts us is like obligations. Like everyone's always like asking you to do this thing. And we were talking last night about how like you're the king of saying no. And like now it's just like the easiest time ever to say no, because people aren't even asking you to do anything, because everyone's kind of doing their own thing right now. And I think sometimes being a people pleaser is also like a toxic thing that you can be using to like avoid your own problems, like trying to solve other people's problems instead of solving your own or whatever. Hope you enjoyed that clip. If you want to watch the full episode, you can click right here. If you want to subscribe to the channel, you can click right here. If you want to watch more clips, we got 2 more right over here.